Good afternoon from Australia. This is the SitRep for today. It is Sunday, the 30th of October. Damn, 2022. Almost Halloween, if you're into such things. Kind of becoming a bit more popular in Australia, but I'm not really that into it, to be honest. What's going on in the world? It's Sunday, so we might cop a bit of rants, just a bit of a general rant. We'll see what happens, but no, there'll definitely be some ranting today. Just forewarning. Forewarned is forearmed, my friends, and that's what this is all about. Is being forewarned, is us having a look at what's happening in the media, or at least what the media is telling us, trying to figure out what's going on in the world. What's the situation here? That's what SitRep stands for, Situation Report. And how can we best arm ourselves? How can we best defend ourselves? How can we get ourselves into the best position possible to ride through the funkiness that is heading our way right now? Because there's a little bit of funkiness coming down the pipe. Anyway, thank you very much again for joining me, all of you. G'day there, advisor. 2021-9, I believe you're up in old Sydney town, off memory. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but up in the big smoke there. Thanks for joining. Thank you. YouTube. Oh, Reagan. Hey, how you going? I was about to say there's no comments on YouTube, and then someone jumps in there. So thank you very much for joining me on Instagram, on YouTube, or listening to this on the audio podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. I can't remember which ones I'm on. iHeartRadio, maybe Apple, Spotify. I'm definitely on Spotify. And a bunch of other ones. Stitcher's a big one, actually. That's where most people listen to me, which is odd because I've never actually opened Stitcher. I have no idea what it is or how it works, but thank you. Thank you for listening. Anyway, let's jump into this. I'm going to start off. I usually finish off with these people who are doing these Just Stop Oil protests. But I'm going to start off with this at the moment with their because this report actually listed a few of the places that they have attacked recently. Protest group Just Stop Oil have daubed another high-profile London store in orange paint. This was a luxury watch brand. It doesn't actually say, and I'm not going to say who it is anyway. It's free advertising for them, so cool. They've also targeted Ferrari, Aston Martin, and Bugatti. So all motor vehicle companies. Very interesting stuff. Interesting targets, I think. Or like, I'm looking at the feedback that's coming from this, and a lot of people are just saying, hey, this is annoying. Like, what are you doing, gang? This is really getting annoying. Can you stop it? And they're all like, yeah, well, it's working. We're annoying people. It's like, is that really what you want to do? Get people offside? I can see the frustration coming through from these people who are trying to get their point across that we're all going to die in some horrific ecological disaster. But maybe that's not the way to go about it. Just saying. Nightmare vaccine-resistant strain of COVID-19 dubbed XBB is surging through Australia and Southeast Asia. News report. Breaking news. There's a nightmare vaccine-resistant strain of COVID-19. Hey, by the way, news. Here's a little breaking news for you. They're all vaccine-resistant. The vaccines don't work. And if you don't believe me, just look at the statistical data coming out of any country that is highly vaccinated and what their rate of transmission is. The vaccines do not work. So this kind of story coming out, nightmare vaccine-resistant strain of COVID-19, is just fucking laughable. Are you fucking serious? It's called XBB. No, it's called COVID-19. All of it. It doesn't matter what strain it is. All of it. We've had a little bit where it's slowed some of it down. We've had some that's got a little bit more of an effect against some of the variants, but across the board, doesn't seem to stop it. So, yeah. Just love that news coming out. Just, a bit more fear-mongering. Can we get back on this COVID thing? It's like, nah, it's gone, guys. Come on. Let it go. Paul Gosner, who is the Republican representative, I think, for Arizona, has officially invited Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky to Arizona to negotiate peace talks. I like this sort of news. I like somebody who's like, hey, let's actually talk about some peace. And I'm going to invite them to Arizona. I don't think they'll go, but hey, just in case Putin is listening to this and Zelensky, I also, in the interest of peace, will invite you to my place. If you guys want to fly out to Australia, you can come out and we'll go out into the bush block so we can be away from prying eyes. We'll sit around the campfire and we'll try and nut out a peace deal here. I just really don't want nukes to be dropped, gang. That's about the summation here. I like this sort of news. I like stuff like this coming out. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I don't think anything's going to happen with it. But this is kind of good news to me, where I say, hey, there are some sane people in the world right now who are actually pushing towards peace. Can we get back at the negotiating table? Because everything else that most world leaders are doing at the moment is antithetical to that end. I cannot see any pushing towards peace, or peace through crushing victory is probably the only way that they can that they're thinking about it right now. All right, wheat. Let's talk about wheat shortages for a second. Wheat shortage as Argentine crop Argentine or Argentine? Argentine. Sounds fancier. I'm going to go with Argentine. Argentine crop disappoints due to drought. Brazil to buy US, Canada, and Russia wheat as Argentine supplies suffer. This coming also on the back that they're buying US ones as well, that the US crops could be affected up to 75% due to their droughts. And what we've just seen overnight, the alleged Ukraine attack, I guess, on the Russian warships, which the Russians have said, hey, those warships, they were actually there to protect the grain. And so you attacking those warships means that you are reneging on our peace deal to get this grain out. And so guess what? No more grain, mofos. You done it. We said don't attack them. You attacked them. And now this is what you get. Whether that's true or not, I don't, know. And I would hazard a guess that it's probably not that Russia was like, oh, these innocent warships were just here to protect this grain. So why would you attack us? Like, yeah, sure, they were just there to protect grain. And then on the other side, Ukraine sort of taking the advantage and going like, oh, we can do this. Sprinkle in a bit too, reports about the UK being heavily involved in that attack, and then Russia alleging that UK was not only involved in that attack, but in Nord Stream attack. That's a whole nother story for another day, and I'm going to let that one ferment for a little bit, maybe a day or two. I won't get a SitRep out tomorrow, but maybe 2 days, and we'll see what comes back from that one, because that goes less into proxy war and more into actual war territory. So let's just let that one lie for now. Anyway, wheat situation around the world getting worse. It's bad already. It's getting worse. In 6 months' time, it's going to be horrific. Secure your food now. Make sure that you're buying up things like, your wheat or whatever, your wheat type products, storing it away, making sure you store it sensibly as well. And I've talked about that in the past and how to store wheat, like touched on it, but there's heaps of videos out on YouTube on really good ways how to do it. Off the top of my head, Canadian Prepper has one, so go check out his site, his YouTube site. I'm pretty sure City Prepping has one too. In there, there's a number of other guys that have them as well, so definitely check them out. But this is the sort of stuff you want to be thinking about. Wheat's not going to get cheaper. It's not going to get more plentiful in the next 6 to 12 months. So if you are one of those dirty wheat eaters, look at you, carb eater. Ugh. Not my fault. I'm gluten intolerant. I still store it up though. I don't eat a lot of wheat, but I still store wheat because, again, part of prepping is not just prepping so I can survive the apocalypse by myself. I'm prepping for my family. I'm prepping for my friends. I'm prepping for my extended community as well. So, these are the sorts of things you want to think about. Wheat, a big 20-kilo bag of wheat at Costco is like exactly Australian dollars sweet FA. I don't know how much it is, but it's cheap. I remember looking at it and go, oh, that's pretty cheap. I'm going to get like 4 of them and store it away. So these sort of stories, they're not getting fewer, they're getting more. It's getting more serious. So start to think about this sort of stuff. Make sure you're prepared if you are a wheat eater, or even if you're just preparing for others as well. Advisor 2021-9-20219. I would like to come to the campfire and discuss prepping and life skills. Yes, and I have been thinking about this. Why haven't I done this in quite some time? Why haven't I invited a group of people around to do a course or do something down? Sometimes on my land, sometimes I've done them elsewhere. I just haven't done any in a long time, but I should do this. I'm going to start really thinking about this over summer, putting it out there, just logging this in people's brains right now. Survival prepping workshop. It'll be maybe 2 days, 2 to 3 days. Might even be what I was working up and kind of let the ball drop because I got busy with other work. Was a kind of a test your preps, as it were. So you rock up with a bag, a realistic bag, and you actually try and live out of that bag. Of course, we'll have other stuff and we'll go through lessons and things like that while we're there. But a really good way to test your preps in a real world scenario without it being life or death. You can come and you go like, yep, I've got this. And I'm like, cool. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Or you go, yeah, I've got this sleeping bag and it's rated to like plus 20 or something and you're freezing overnight. All that sort of stuff. But anyway, watch this space. I'll get around to it. Please feel free to send me messages and annoy me about it, though, because the more annoying messages I get about it, the more likely I am to do it. Australia, more Australian news. COVID vaccines were approved in Australia 5 months before health authorities knew about the heightened risk of myocarditis. Thank you. This is not news really to any of us. It's blatantly obvious. But the real thing about this is where it's going, because people are getting upset about it. They're like, oh, it was approved and we didn't know exactly what the thing was. We knew that back then. That was bloody obvious back then. This is just absolutely highlighting the lack of common sense in our society right now. And this is one thing I like to talk about all the time. Like, common sense is not common anymore, unfortunately. I think we should call it uncommon sense or spidey sense or something. It's like a friggin' superpower. Just looking at something and going like, this doesn't seem right. Like, oh yeah, they're approving it. It seems all good. Well, how do we know? Like, they could not have done enough studies. They could not have figured out long-term effects on this sort of stuff in the time that it took them to put it out there. That's just common sense. I'm not talking even from a scientist perspective here. I'm just talking from an average Joe. I'm talking from a knuckle dragging, idiot here. From my perspective, I just looked at it and went like, well, we just don't know the side effects. So I'm not really willing to step into that. So the fact that people now are like getting up in arms about this, it's like, come on, use your brain, Australia, and rest of the world, I guess. Along with this story, here's another one which I thought was interesting because it's kind of foreshadowing the government. Now, I did report on this. I said there was a government budget just coming out in Australia, and they put aside a bunch of money to the National Disability Insurance Scheme, which I thought, oh, that's interesting. I know a lot of money goes there anyway, and Australia is kind of very social welfare-y kind of state, so it makes sense. But I'm like, why are they actually like announcing the National Disability Insurance Scheme? Why is that getting named in this report? That's pretty interesting. Well, comes out here, the federal government has set aside $77 million to compensate people injured by COVID-19 vaccines. That also was in the budget. Interesting stuff. So there's an admission there that, like, yep, there is, firstly, that there are injuries from the vaccine. Secondly, that it's a large issue because the government is setting aside money for it. And thirdly, that there is a admission by, I guess, subtext that they were wrong. The only kind of get out of jail free card here is that the current government that's in isn't the government that was in when all this went down. They would have done the exact same thing. They probably would have done it much worse, but they can sort of sit there and go, hey, look, that wasn't us. That was those guys. We have given you money now because we've admitted that they were wrong. But yeah, I can see this like being scapegoated all the way out, unfortunately, because I think all government should pay for this. Also, 77 million, Not nearly enough, in my view, not nearly enough. You need to be much higher. You got to pump those numbers up. They're rookie numbers, Australian government. 77 billion, I think, would be starting to get into the ballpark, in my humble opinion. Feel free to argue with me if you want. Okay, reports coming out of China. They're in some major lockdowns right now. Again, they're still going with this COVID zero policy, which is utter madness, clearly, but points for trying, E for effort, I guess, over there in China. Like, you're really, sticking to your guns, so can't fault that. iPhone City, which is the Foxconn factory over in Zhengzhou. Zhengzhou sounds more Chinese. I'm going to go with that one. In that province there. Essentially what happened, this COVID thing, there was a little bit of an outbreak. They had some, reports that they had it. So they said, okay, you know what? We need to keep making iPhones. So we're going to lock you all down in this precinct, in our area here. So you're going to live here, you're going to be fed here, and you're going to work here. And that's it. Which in of itself is a terrifying idea. And anyone who is on that kind of side of going like, yeah, you know what? US has been in power for 50 years. It's time that someone else steps up. And why, China, sure, why not? There should be a new world superpower. We should share it around. Well, this would be a good example of why I would say you don't want China as a world superpower, or the world superpower, I should say. You want it at least contested, because if they're willing to do this to their own people, imagine what they could do with the rest of the world. I'm not defending US's policies, especially their foreign policies over the last 50 years. There's been, quite a few mistakes made there. But here's the alternative that we're stuck with at the moment, that we're looking down the barrel of. That's not a good place to be. So they've had, obviously, they had to start rationing food out to these people. They've been locked down in some reports are saying quite shitty conditions, like 12 people in a room, sort of shitty conditions. And they can only go from their accommodation to the pickup of the food ration, back to their accommodation, then to work. And everywhere in between there, testing, getting COVID tested. So, pretty shitty situation there, but apparently there's been some sort of unrest, maybe even riot-like activity over the food. So maybe the food's not enough. Maybe certain people are getting certain things, other people are getting certain things, and they're saying, hey, well, they get that and I don't get that. But whatever it is, there has been some sort of uprising or unrest that's happened within there. Scuffles, quote unquote, have even broke out amongst employees over food. These are some of the reports that we're getting from this area here. Pretty scary stuff, actually. I look at this, a massive fan of sci-fi, right? And all things nerd, as I am. But I love my sci-fi, and they're always future type movies. Sometimes they're utopian, sometimes they're dystopian. The dystopian ones really sort of catch your imagination. And sometimes these sci-fis get stuff right. And there's been a number, I've seen this sort of setup where people are kind of locked down, almost imprisoned, really. Get your ration of food, go back to your accommodation, be tested, go to work, be tested, get your food, go back to your accommodation, be tested. Like, I could not think of anything worse, honestly. This just seems absolutely horrible. Stick with China now. Hang on, we've got some comments here. Taxpayers are paying for government incompetence and criminality, says SpyScale27. You're absolutely correct. It's you and I. That's $77 million, and I'm saying it will be a lot more that will probably come out of that. That's, they're fine to do that. They're like, yeah, sure, we'll do that. It's not their freaking money. At gunpoint, they take it from us. I mean, they're not pointing a gun at you, but down the line they would be if you didn't pay any tax. I just checked my, what do you call it, quarterly statement that I have to pay tax. I'm just like, this is just ridiculous. Anyway, I hate tax. Lockdowns are a good way to control an economy in trouble that is impacted by food shortages, says Renee C on YouTube. I agree. This, what we could be seeing is their COVID zero policy or them trying to actually protect what the hell is actually going on in that country, which could be much, much worse than we could even imagine. I've said this a number of times when it comes to the Chinese economy. I am stupefied daily that I don't wake up in the morning and go, it's gone, it's collapsed. It is like World War Z, it is the Great Depression, and it has started in China today. When I see that headline, I'll be like, okay, I get it now, because all the factors are there, everything's there, and just somehow it's not happening. Their government, through sheer will and draconian authoritarian control, choke-like control over its people, is manipulating it and allowing things to keep going. Kicking the can down the street isn't even a good enough analogy for this. They're kind of like on their hands and knees, like forcing the can down the street. But yeah, a lot of bad things happening in China, and maybe these lockdowns are actually just part of them trying to control it. And why are these people in this situation at Foxconn? Because they need to keep making iPhones. They need to keep selling iPhones. Apple just posted what their sales have been. I think it was for the past year. But it was like iPhone is by far their biggest seller. And I can't remember what it was, but $44 billion or something in iPhones. Just crazy sort of stuff. Peter Rouse says, I thought you were talking about Melbourne for a minute. Yeah, could be. Poor Melbournians. Feel for you guys. China and Pakistan have come to an agreement, $10 billion agreement, to build a railway between their two countries to deepen their relations. So again, this is another one of those countries that is attaching itself onto the BRICS alliance, and putting their money where their mouth is, essentially. This isn't just like agreements on paper or anything. We've got countries that are creating huge economic deals in between the BRICS nations and friends and others. And this is another example of it. And I always like to point these things out, that there's a whole new system growing right now, right before our very eyes. This is the shift of power as we look at it, is this BRICS. So Pakistan, China, there you go. Bet that will upset India. Probably. Maybe. India and China aren't the best of friends anyway, so it kind of makes sense. But then again, India and China still have a lot of economic ties. When we're thinking more politically, that they're a bit strained, but economically they've still got ties there. A lot of ties that are going on there. But India, famously, not a friend of Pakistan, not a friend of China. So it kind of makes sense that those two would be like, well, why don't we team up within the BRICS? Well, there you have it. Nice, quick-ish one. What are we at? 23 minutes. And I didn't even rant too long. Just wanted to get this one out today because, as I said, tomorrow I'll be far too busy to do it. But yeah, a few things there that we need to think about. Mainly, food prices. A lot of these sort of things are hinging on. We're going to see increases in food prices. That's a given now. We had, is it the PM? Does that make sense, of Germany? So they've got I'm not sure how the German political system works, but they've got the Chancellor. Then their regions, I think, have PMs. I'm not sure. If anyone's from Germany, can you please tell me about this? But the PM came out and said, or the person came out and said, look, we're looking at hard times ahead. That's what's happening. I think the exact words they might have said were, we're going into 5 to 10 years of a headwind. That's putting it very lightly, I think. But we're seeing major politicians now come out and start to admit this stuff, that, we're going to have hard times ahead, which is kind of flies in the face to what politicians usually do, where they're like, everything's cool, business is normal, we're all good. we're all good, except I need you to fear this because I need you to, buy into this blah, blah, blah. Because my husband has a lot of shares in it. And he's also got, a large medical bill now. Do you get what I mean? There's a subtle one. Stop. Hammer time. Too soon? Too soon? Anyway, if you get that, let me know. I'll keep forging forward. Make sure you're working on your food preps as always. My garden is going bonanza, but I am about to do the next swing of gardening. So I'm going to be putting seeds into little planter boxes, growing them up. And I'm thinking, what are we getting? We're almost at November the 4th. November the 4th. Remember, the 5th of November. That's when you can plant tomatoes where I live. They say don't do it before then because they'll die. You'll get a frost and they'll die. So that's what I'm looking at next, is starting to get the summer crops on, which is super exciting. Yes, Bulge, it was the Paul Pelosi reference. It's horrible. Nobody likes to hear anyone who's attacked in their own home. Except maybe that family. Hey, in case you didn't know, I don't love everyone in the world. All right? I love my family. I love my friends. I love my community. And I love the people who watch me on this and follow me. If you're not in that circle, though, chances are that I feel pretty indifferent to you. And if you're doing things that I think are actively working against the well-being of the majority of human beings on the face of the earth right now, then I do not like you. And so this individual that we're talking about right now probably falls within that category. Anyway, I do like you. Thank you very much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Peter was attacked by his boyfriend. Whew. It's a spicy one, Pete. Just drop that on us. Damn, bro. Yeah, love you, gang. Hope you're all doing well on this beautiful sunny Sunday. Well, it's sunny here at least, and I don't know what the weather is where you are, but hello. Come up here and say hi to everyone. Hey, Kendra, come here. Come on. There we go. Yes, and you even get a dog to finish off on. All right, gang, that's it for today. I'll see you guys in a couple of days, probably. As always, keep prepping, keep yourself safe, keep your head on a swivel, keep your eyes open. And need I say it again? But Semper Paratus.